if you do anything with digital images, and whether you're, again, a hobbyist or a professional, we're finding so many people incorporating digital stills in their collection. It's phenomenal. PhotoStudio 2, if you have PhotoStudio 1, PhotoStudio 2 is a $99 upgrade. But again, at the show, we have a 20% off special. And somebody asked me a question this morning. I want to make sure I was clear on that. Is Carol Lamb is set up in the foyer, as it were, with his software download machine, and you can purchase it from this show and go home with your activation code and fire up the software as soon as you get home and start using it. So there is no delay in receiving it if that's your choice. And that's why I passed out the sheet this morning as well, is some people at the conferences in the past have made notes of things that they find particularly useful and prioritize, well, these are must-haves, or these are I want to ask more about or find out more about. And it gives you the 20% discount prices there as well.
Does that 20% discount apply to second machines?
The 20% discount is to your first machine.
Right.
And then if you own more than one machine, sounds like you have a 40% discount.
Right.
That, with Casablanca, our specials are never combinable.
Okay.
So it doesn't hurt to ask, though.
You don't get 20% off the 40%.
Right. So that is an excellent question. I do get asked that every time. So thank you for clarifying that. The only stupid question is the one you never ask, or the one you go home and go, gosh, I wish I would have asked that. All right. Now, when I fire up PhotoStudio, it's under the special menu here. PhotoStudio 2 does require 256 megs of RAM, but it will function on every machine, from the Clara Navio up to the Solitaire. And I'm just going to highlight some of the capabilities that I particularly enjoy and show you some of what I think are the cool tips within the system. For importing photos, which is very nice, we have the capacity to bring in photos right off of a photo CD. Okay? So I can take this collection of JPEGs. These images were actually shot on my wife's Canon AE1 single-lens reflex camera. And the place where she gets her prints made, they also have the option to give you a photo CD full of JPEGs. And that's what we have here. I also have images on here. You're going to see some kind of images of floral and fauna, and those were scanned in from traditional 4x6 prints, and on my computer burned onto a CDR. Okay? So what happens here is, in this window, in the Import Photos window, it's showing me that I have essentially a folder with 47 separate images in it. Okay? And I can make adjustments to look at these photos in a couple of different fashions. I also have the ability to look at them in terms of size, depending on your eyesight and kind of what you're comfortable in terms of organizing the images and how you want to see them. You can see I've got shots of my son's t-ball game, and then we have shots of a visit to the pumpkin farm last October, and then some shots from our yard. Okay? So if I wanted to, I could click on just one of these images and get that photo. Okay? If I wanted to bring all of these images from that CD, what I would choose to do is come back here to the date filter and turn it off, so it's not showing me the photos arranged chronologically by date when they were taken. But instead, I can open or close that folder, and the neat thing is I can take that and get all 47 photos right like that. So right now it's importing all 47 photos from that CD into my system. Pardon?
Now, will they be numbered exactly right from 1 to 47?
It's actually taking the metadata that's recorded with that JPEG, rather than giving it a numerical sequence that's arbitrary to my process here. So we'll go ahead and fire up that and show you. First, let me take this photo out. Okay.
I want to put together a CD that preview the work.
Yes.
I want it to be exactly the sequence I started with in order to make these.
Yeah. As I brought those in, it brought them in the order that I had them saved on that CD.
Okay, so it will be.
Correct.
What if you scan the pictures, Chet?
bring them into the order and then you scan them and save them to a card or a disk?
I'm not certain of that answer. Let me.
If you scan, if you name them as you go and save them in the proper sequence, it will.
In Photo 2?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember how I had this.
Is there a way to select 1, 2, or 3 of them all at one time?
Yes. Yes. Okay. Another question up here was in terms of kind of grouping your images. Okay. There's some really powerful capabilities in what we call the folders, and it's really important you have the grasp of that because it can be very, very useful. The folders are applicable in the import window, in the sort window where I'm at now. So after I've brought my images in, I'm coming here and I'm sorting them. So these are all the images I've loaded into PhotoStudio. Okay, these are from my CD, or they could become from your digital card drive, what have you. These are now in the system. I've removed any external media. Okay? And I have them organized by different photos, okay, or folders. So down here, this is the last images that you just saw me bring in. When you click on any one of these folders, okay, you have this capacity to open or close that folder. Okay? And you can drag and drop and move them around. I can take an additional image or photo and drop it into that folder.
How did you get the folders?
The folders come in with the media, or you can create your own. So let's say under the Special button, I want to create a new folder. I'm going to show you a couple different applications. Let's say I've got, let's open this guy. I've got 4 of these floral shots here, and I want to close that. And let's say I want to put the rest of these shots into a folder. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this first image. Okay? I can create an empty folder with or without moving the photos in. So right now I've just created an empty folder, and you can see there's 0 images in that folder. Okay? I can click and drag and put those photos in there. Now there's 1 photo in there and there's 2 photos. Okay? Or if I want to, again, depending on where you're at in your menu, you have the capacity. Like in this, I'm going to open up this menu here because I had both T-ball and then I had my visit to the pumpkin farm. If I wanted the visit to the pumpkin farm to be in a separate folder, what I can do is click on that first pumpkin farm image. I'll go ahead and enlarge it for. So there's the last T-ball in the first pumpkin farm. Go up to Special and say, move all the photos after this one into this new folder. Okay? So there's my new folder with the pumpkin farm.
Can you name the folders?
You can indeed. Over to the Edit menu. It's named New Folder.
Chet,
Yes.
go ahead and show how you can take that one folder and just drop it into your whole timeline.
Right. Definitely. Let me work through a couple of other images because that's a really cool feature. Okay. Okay, so we've got some images in. Now we can organize them. The other thing we can do is we can just, if we wanted to, look at them one by one. Okay. The other neat thing with folders is you have this button over here as far as rotating. So I can take several of these images, which are, you can see on the shot on the other perspective. When I click on rotate, it gives me my choices. And it shows me what my choices are going to look like. Okay? So by clicking on that, it's going to organize that appropriately. The other neat thing I can do is, let's go ahead and create a new empty folder. Okay? So I got this new empty folder over here. And I'm going to put all the shots that I want to rotate into that folder. Batch render, exactly. So I've got, let's say, these 5 photos right here. I want to take and rotate them to the correct perspective. And it's going to take and just do them all at once. So you can do a whole folder of images instead of having to rotate one by one by one. Okay? So the folder thing is a real cool thing to get a handle on. Now, I'm done with that folder because I rotated my images. I click on that folder, and you can see it's highlighted in white. And then I come over here, and I want to remove the folder but keep the photos. So that folder goes away and leaves my folders behind. So it kind of lets me, you know, rearrange my drawers and kind of organize them. Now, as I'm looking through these photos, if I know there's one in particular and I go, oh, I didn't mean to load that puppy, I can sort it out. Okay? Now, sorted out is kind of like purgatory. I'm not totally done for. There's a second chance. So what we have is we have a folder. Where'd she go? And I've named it something else. And I have a sort out folder. Now, if I delete an image, like these I definitely want to delete. They're just gone forever, Clementine. They're gone. I have to reload them if I want to use them. Okay? But if I've got these other images and I want to sort them out, okay, it's given me a second chance, and I have renamed my folders. There's a folder called Sort Out, unless somebody was playing with my system here. And that sort out folder is kind of like a second opportunity for you to kind of decide, okay, do I want to use this or not? So, and I'm going to have to play around here and find out where I put my sort out folder, what I renamed it. But normally when you use the process, the first time you use sort out, you will have a folder and it will be called sort out.
Sorting out it went into one with the X.
The X one? Oh, great. I was trying to watch that on the slide, but I wasn't as quick as you were. Thank you. Okay, so as we come over here to the X, there's the images I just sorted out a moment ago. Okay, now if I'm done with that sort out and I know I don't want them, I can just delete the whole folder. And it reminds me, though, wait a minute, you sure? Okay, yeah. So those sorted out images are now gone. Okay, in fact, let's see as I click this, because we have, and there we have now a sort out folder. Came back because I deleted the previous sort out folder. So again, these your bins and drawers can be very, very useful. Showing detail, you can just scroll through your images, see what you kind of do close-up shots to see what you like, and in this version you could sort out as well. Okay. And as you're looking at the details here, what's nice to note as well is you can come in here and click on this hitherto unnamed button and get a close-up of your images as well. Okay. Not in that window. That's just for like previewing or reviewing to make sure, okay, you want to do a close-up, is Junior sticking out his tongue in this shot? I can't really tell. So I want to zoom in. For the actual zooming, you would use this particular menu. And I'll go ahead and do that here. And that's the crop menu. This is oft misunderstood, both on our forum, electronically, and listserv, and when I talk to people on the phone or via email. There's a lot of contention about this, and let me clarify this. You cannot take a square peg and fit it in a round hole. Well, without some degree of force. Okay? Most traditional still photography is a 4:6 aspect ratio. Video is a 3:4 aspect ratio. Totally different aspect ratio and different screen size. That's why many of us are familiar when we see a Hollywood film on DVD at home, it says, this film has been modified. It's been changed to fit your screen format. And they're actually kind of squeezing it. Or if you look at the old CinemaScope movies, the hero and the villain are off screen on the far left and right side sometimes. Or if you're a purist, you get the letterbox edition because you want to see it as a director intended. So you have the black lines at the top and bottom. And that's the actual dimension of the widescreen image. That's seeing the full, unadulterated widescreen film image that folks see when you go to the theater. Okay? By taking a 4:6 photo and trying to fit it onto my TV screen, okay, let me show you what this is really cool. Up until a month ago, and I haven't checked since in terms of competing systems, this was not available. This was a new feature, and I love this because it's a real-world application. This is this is a 4:3 aspect space. That's what a TV screen, full screen, is going to show of that picture. Now, I can click on the edges and enlarge it, but you can see there's a portion of the image that does not conform to the aspect ratio. This is not a Casablanca issue. This is physical science. Okay? I have choices. If I want the image to fill full screen without any borders, I can put this format down here in the 4:3 and move that around. Again, I have the creative control. I might like that because I kind of like the pumpkins and I like them a little bit left of center. I think it's a real kind of a creative shot there. Okay? Or I have the capacity to zoom in. Okay? Or if I really just want to have my own way, I can go free and say, you know, give me a real interesting image. Okay? That's going to be really interesting when it gets to my 4:3 TV screen. Okay? Now, this dovetails importantly with another button. In your main menu, under Presentation, how you're presenting it to your audience. This is important. One of the first things you set when you go into PhotoStudio 2 is go to Presentation Options and decide, for images that do not conform to the 4:3 aspect ratio, how do you want the audience to see them? Okay, again, making light of it, but I can stamp my feet all I want, and it's not going to come out perfectly unless that image is a 4:3 perspective. I have choices. I can either crop them to the 4:3 aspect ratio in the screen you just saw, or I can choose whatever portion of the image I want the audience to see, and Casablanca will do the rest. Either giving me a black border around the areas that are not within the 4:3 aspect ratio, or it'll give me a white border, or it will automatically crop the image to fit the size with no border, or the last one, which I don't even know why we provide as an option, is scale. And I think a better name for that is Funhouse Mirror. Okay? Remember that, you know, you go to the carnivals and you go in and you look like you're kind of like your legs are 2 feet wide and you're about 3 feet tall, and it has that opportunity. And that's, again, actually that's a special effect we intended to add. So for those who are taking photos of relatives they don't care for, perhaps, but you know, I don't know why anybody would realistically want to use that scale version, because it automatically readjusts the image to fit the aspect ratio, and you don't have any control of how it's going to look. If you read stuff on the listserv and on the forum about it's making really weird images, okay? After the PhotoStudio 2 update, if that still is happening, that's because these people, and I've talked to several of them on the phone and via email, I said, is this set? And they said, oh, that's cool, everything's fine now. Okay, so that was our fault. That wasn't clearly communicated. But the first thing you do when you use PhotoStudio is do this. I'm going to show you what that's going to do in a second here. Okay, the other neat thing is take a look at this here. Right now, all my JPEGs are high-resolution digital images that you're seeing. They're not dumbed down to NTSC video. Okay, they're a much higher resolution than the video is. You're going to see I have a couple of different places that I can say, make this image a video scene. Turn it into video, essentially. And I have the opportunity here to set the default length. So if I don't change it, it's going to come up like if I want all my images to be 12 seconds long or 7 seconds long. If I don't modify or change it, it will come out as a 7-second long scene. Remember that more is more. If you've got a longer scene, you can easily trim it down in your scene bin, much easier than you can attempt to make it longer and double it and put 2 of them up there and so on and so forth. To reload the image. So if you're doing cropping, like that one I did a moment ago, I made a permanent crop there. And I meant to do that. And delete. And now, here's where I can take the image, and let's go ahead and carry that out to its full extension. Here's that shot. Remember I just cropped it? Creating a scene of it is the language to say, take it over to Smart Edit. You're going to include this in your video. When I create a scene, again, what comes up is I've got a length here, and that can be anywhere between 1 second and 60 seconds in length. If I want an 8-second long scene, when I click OK, watch what's going to happen. You're going to see that image of that weird box that I made of my son with a black border, because that's the selection I chose. Remember I chose black border? There's the black border. Okay? So it's rendering out that scene. So when I come over here and quit PhotoStudio 2, I have a shot conform to the aspect ratio, the 4:3 aspect ratio, adding the borders so that the whole image would fit in there. Okay? That makes sense on the aspect ratio thing? It's really important you have an understanding. Yes?
The name that it gives it, is the name that the image name file?
Yes, good question. The scene name was the image name that came in with that digital image off the CD.
If you rename all your images, they'll show up with those.
That is correct. If you rename them in your sort window, it will rename them as well.
Are you going to get into animation here?
Yes.
Because that's where I have the aspect ratio problem.
Okay. Okay. And that setting where I just was affects lots of the different menus in PhotoStudio 2. So make sure that presentation settings options is at either black border or white border.
Chet, I have slides that bring them into my machine.
Okay.
Can I go direct, or do I have to go through my computer?
You'd have to scan them to a computer or to a independent scanner. There's a couple manufacturers that make models that will, without a PC, will scan it direct to a digital drive. So like you can scan them directly to a compact flash drive.
I cannot use the scanner on that slide and go directly into the...
Right now, we do not support the drivers that lets your Casablanca communicate with a scanner. What has to happen is we as the manufacturer, well, they as the other equipment manufacturer need to provide us with the driver that lets our unit talk to their unit. And that's in the offing.
Okay, right now I can scan it, go into my computer, and then I have the crossover, and I can take the computer.
You could do that, or save it to a digital media drive or to a CD, either one. Yeah. I think most people will find, and Carol or Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, but the saving to CD, I don't know, would be quicker than, you have an Ethernet transfer? I don't know. I guess the Ethernet transfer versus photo CDs on a PC, I don't know if there's significant benefit in speed going to a CD or...
I haven't tried.
Yeah, I don't know a comparison either.
Okay.
I mean, it will function, but... Yes?
You could use your slide sorter, too, and just use your camera to get it in there.
That's true. Well, and if you're going
But if you're going to use Ethernet, you have to convert the JPEGs into APIs. So
Yeah.
I do that, but just send an API file. I haven't tried it.
because they're scanned as a JPEG file, it might be quicker to save them to CD or to a digital media drive, because then you're keeping it as a JPEG, and otherwise you're converting and then you're making an AVI file to transfer it over, and then essentially unconverting it from AVI back to JPEG. So.
Unless you lose the resolution, it could be the
Right. Right. Okay, a couple more pieces in here, and this is the retouch window. Okay, you have the capacity to affect a portion of the scene. Okay, for example, in this particular shot, I kind of like the shot of my son here, but I don't like this other player. Nothing personal, but I just rather have him kind of way out there in left field. I have the opportunity to clone this area of the grass onto this area of the grass, essentially removing another player.
So you don't need a crop. You just crop.
Yeah. Not that my son's the only important person on the planet, but you know. So that's right. Okay. So so you can do some really cool stuff. There's cloning both. You may have seen aligned and unaligned. So I've essentially removed the lower legs of that. It's kind of weird, but yeah, I've seen actually people remove significant other from a photo. You can do some really creative and interesting stuff in here. So, but essentially with the capacity to retouch. Now, you also have in here your brightness, contrast, saturation information. You've got your gamma and you have RGB values as well. And what's neat about that is if you get a particular setting that works well with a group of photos shot under specific lighting conditions on a given day, you actually have the capacity to save those as well. So I could call this T-ball Mayday, and it will save all the parameters under the archive setting so I don't have to come back and reset them. And here's the button I mentioned last night that I really like. And I've encouraged the developers to include that in more of the menus where we have that capacity. It's a real nice automatic reset. The other interesting thing is the developers actually gave us some archives already to start with. On the right side is the effected version, and on the left side is the original photo. So you have some different versions that get kind of interesting. And the neat part about that is you might go, well, that's pretty extreme. I don't think I really like that. But what the nice thing is if you select that, it brings back the settings. Okay? So you can see the settings the developer used to get that, and maybe you want to just tweak it a little bit to get a piece that you want. And that's already, again, built into the system when you go under Archives and then load those particular settings. And if I made my own, it would appear here as well in the menu alphabetically.
Can you get rid of the ones that are supplied? You don't like the manufacturer settings, you want to just delete.
I don't know. Let's see here. Yeah. You'd have to go, let's say I wanted to get rid of this silhouette yellow. Let's see. You delete, and then you collect the one you want to delete. And click OK. And then it reminds, are you sure you want to do that? Yeah. All right. Animation. And if you've used PhotoStudio 1, these are very different in terms of their speed, in terms of their capabilities. The other interesting thing, under both of these settings, animation and a photo collage, they have their own submenu, their own separate folder. Okay? So when I go into animation now, I have a separate area. These are all animations I've worked on previously. Okay? Now the green is a created or rendered animation path. The red little camera on its cute little tripod needs to be created or rendered out, as we do a little pan from left to right. Okay? So it's not only creating or finishing that for me to view in PhotoStudio, but it's actually, when at the end of that little creating process, has put a copy in my scene bin for me to use in the Smart Edit environment. But the neat thing about this is I can go back now and make modifications if I wanted to change how that appears on screen. Okay? I can take that original motion path and edit that. Okay? So let me start out with a brand new, I'm going to do a brand new animation. So from scratch, here we go. I'm going to make a new animation, so I click on the New button. Okay? Then I'm going to go ahead and select an image. Let's see. Let's take the field of poppies here. Okay. You have a beginning point and you have an ending point. Those of you who are familiar with PIP Studio, Picture-in-Picture Studio, are familiar with the kind of operator that we have here. So we have your starting point, and the rectangle area shows you essentially the camera view. That's how much the audience would see of that shot. And when I go to next, that's the ending shot, if you will. So there's a single beginning and an ending. And how it will look to the audience right now, oops, ignore that, is it's going to start on the left scene and just kind of pan across to the right side. Okay? Now how I would change that is I go back to this particular camera move, what some people would call a key point, and I want to edit that key point or that key frame. There's a couple of cool buttons, okay? Minimal and center. So I can just zoom out and take me to the optical center of that shot, and that's what it just did. Okay, so it took me to the optical center of the 4:3 ratio of that shot. And now it's going to start out as a wide shot, and it's going to zoom in as it pans to the right in on a particular image. I can click on that next piece, or again, I can do previous and next, and then move what that camera is going to see. So if I wanted to zoom in on this shot, I can just click right on this and narrow it down. Okay? Or I can use the edit box to change the zoom. By rolling my trackball left and right, I'm changing the amount of the zoom magnification here. And I can also kind of fine-tune its position of where it's going to end up on screen. So again, two different ways of kind of doing the same thing depending on how you want to navigate through the shot. Now, if I wanted to modify the path of the animation, I have that capability as well. Let's say I wanted it to start out on this wide shot and kind of come around through these flowers and over here. Okay? By clicking directly on the path, I have the ability to shape the camera movement. Now, when it goes off screen, it supplies a black border because I've gone outside of the normal picture area. Okay? And I can modify that if I want to make it kind of less obtrusive. Now, these are what we would call waypoints. Okay? When I click on them, I don't see the kind of camera box that I'm seeing over here. Those points are only used to shape the line, the path. Okay? Now, what determines the length of this piece and the speed at which we move? That's determined down here under Settings. Okay? Right now I have it paused for 1 second before the animation movement begins. And I have it paused at the very end, 1 second after the animation is complete. And I do that intentionally because if I'm bringing that over to my scene bin in Smart Edit, I want to have a 1 second period of time that I can have a really nice crossfade or a different transition before it goes into the next animation piece. I'm old school. I don't like to transition on movement. Okay? So if I wanted the whole scene to be longer, the motion itself would now be, 7 seconds long. You got a second at beginning and end, making it 9 seconds. So it's going to sit there for a second and go slower as it takes in that whole animation path down to the end. Now let's say you are doing a, let me come out of this, and say you're doing a photo of people. I think I've got a nice shot of a group of individuals here. Okay. So let's say I want to start out, and I want to start out centered. So let's go ahead and center that, make it minimal. So start out on a wide shot. And then we want to end up on this child over here. So again, I can... But I want to have it come in, let's say I want it to pause on the coach and show the coach's face for a second. Because I actually want it to pause somewhere for a moment, what I want to do is add a new camera move. If I click on the line, I'm just shaping the line. It won't stop there. So I click New, and I have this new box around this button. Okay. Now I can actually have it pause. So it starts out on my wide shot. It's going to go up there and sit on the coach's face for a moment, and then it's going to move down. So by adding those new camera moves and adjusting the settings, you can have it do some really cool. So imagine, where you're doing reunion shots, where you're doing class images, class photos. You can do some really creative things as far as where it's going and how long it's sitting and work its way through the whole animation piece.
You can do that on the new show.
Right. When you click on New, that gives you a new, what we call camera move or keyframe. And just by clicking on it, gives you a brand new one right here. So now it's going to pause for a second on this coach. And each one of them can be independent as far as how long they sit.
Chet, is there any way to archive those settings? Because it drives you crazy. Every time you go to a different picture, you got to go back in, especially if you want it longer or the same one as you did before, which is the standard.
That particular question, Frank, did come up at the last conference, and Jorg appreciated the reasons behind that. There isn't that capacity right now. Unlike PhotoStudio 1, it just kind of kept those animation points in memory. Part of the reason why was you didn't have the scene bin with all the separate animations that we do now. But we're going to see that in the next release version.
Is there a way when you're at this point, what I do sometimes is I'll have maybe 15 or 20 animations. Is there a way to batch hit a thing and just do all of them? You have to wait one at a time?
They do have to be done one at a time.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. And again, as we're creating or rendering them, it's It's finishing them in the animation window, and it's also exporting that out to your Smart Edit window. So when we come over here and quit PhotoStudio 2, we have our finished animation piece down in the regular Smart Edit window. And again, if you're starting out with good resolution images, you've got some really creative power here. Yes?
Yeah, this could be on a different software, but does the photo allow you, when you're manipulating colors, to, let's say, take a photo of a bride, take the entire photo to black and white, but then lighten up maybe her roses or a bouquet to a single color, so you've got a black and white photo and red roses, or something. It could be your kid's jersey and the shot, everything is black and white, but his shirt is green.
In Blue Box World, there's an effect called Separate Chroma, and you can select. Take a sharp left turn here for a quick turn around town. And you have the capacity to select a shot. For example, in this capacity, I chose the yellow daffodil, and I wanted to subtract all the other chroma that wasn't the yellow daffodil, and it will actually track the motion. And that's called Blue Box World. Or you can alternate and select the red. And again, that's Blue Box World. All right. Yes?
Under options, you set it under black border for your animation, and that takes care of that aspect ratio problem too?
Uh-huh.
Did you
Yeah.
show that, Chet?
So which piece?
That photograph of your son in the pumpkin patch, can you show that without the black border?
No.
Oh, I thought you said if you hit the crop button, it eliminates the borders.
I see your question. If I chose to edit that shot and crop it in the 4:3 ratio,
Right.
so in this particular case then, because that's all the photo I have left, that would come out with no borders. So, oops, I didn't make it into a scene, did I? Create a scene. So that's the shot, and I've cropped it minus the borders, so it conforms to the aspect ratio.
So that's what you'd have on your...
That's what you'd see in your video scene.
Lose anything there when you...
Well, I'm starting to get a little bit of pixelation because I've zoomed in a good degree.
Can you start back off with the original picture to show us?
Later I can. I have to reload it. Because like my dad said, do as I say, not as I do.
Did you show us with another picture?
Sure. And there was another question over here. Yes?
You showed rotation by multiples of 90 degrees.
Correct.
If you want to rotate a little bit to level horizon, for example, can you do that?
There's kind of a workaround, and I'll show you that in the collage function. You can do it a little bit. If you do it a lot, it kind of gets really interesting.
So you need to do that on your computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chet, you just showed us how you can drop all of the pictures that you came in on, when you import them, and you can just drop them over into the...
Sure. Well, what you want to do is if you've, let's say you've retuned, you've taken, so in this particular folder I have 3 separate images. Okay? Remember where I made a scene? If I click on an image and make a scene of it, it makes a scene of that one image. By the way, yes, this is my wife's photography, and photosbyrose.com is going up next month. In all reality, she's got some good photos. I can take a folder. If I click Create Scene, it will go through and do a batch, making scenes to the storyboard of all the images I had in that particular folder.
In order.
All the same length.
In order.
In order. So when I come over to my scene bin, then we have the 3 images that I brought out. So I brought this one out separately by itself, you may remember, and then these are the 3 that I just brought over a moment ago.
Wouldn't you want to change the aspect ratio 90 degrees or whatever before you do that?
Yeah, the rotation?
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes, thank you. You'd want to do any cropping or rotating prior to bringing them in the scene bin. because then it looks really interesting. And we still get people asking, you know, can't you guys rotate video on an angle? And I say, well, there are some tools you can use to kind of do that, but it's always good to put that in a presentation too if you're not sure about your audience, because if a good portion of the audience goes like this in the middle of a show, you know they're still with you. So, but all right. Let me go back to PhotoStudio 2 and show you this other collage piece, which is really cool. Similar to animation, we have the capacity to create a collage of shots. So I can take a bunch of still photos from my collection and build this scene right here. I'll go ahead and, let's go ahead and make a new one. I'm going to go ahead and create new. So I start out with an empty canvas, if you will, and I have the option to totally change the background color. Okay? Because I'm doing a kind of a floral thing here, I want it to stay within green because, you know, green is life, and yet I wanted to make it dark so that the photos really stood out well. And I have the ability, I could even go ahead and pick a color. So again, I can pick a natural green from the background here. Take this darker green, lighter green back in here, and that will become the color background for my images. A new box simply lets me take an image and place it. And you can see I can freely position it by size, keeping the same ratio of the original image. And this works out to be a real nice kind of a title screen or a piece. Go ahead and select a couple shots here. And you can overlap them, and some of the traditional aspects, I can bring it to the front or the back when you have multiple layers. Okay? And the nice thing about that, too, is I can edit the box and give each box like a, that's kind of atrocious. Let's go here. Give it a nice kind of a black border. Okay? And you can have different borders. You also have the capacity to throw a drop shadow on there. Okay. And in this case, again, I chose a drop shadow with a 50% alpha channel. So it gives it, you know, it's enhanced there, but not a solid black. And as I point out, when we go through titling and everything else, if you're doing multiple lines of text, if you're doing multiple boxes, what have you, it's a good idea for the drop shadows to all go the same direction, because in this particular galaxy or universe, we only have one sun, which shines all from the same direction. So if you've got shadows going multiple directions, it could be really interesting. So the neat thing about this, again, is let's say I wanted to take that shot and edit this out. I have the capacity to click on that image and edit the box. I can free rotate that object. Okay? So I can kind of free rotate that in space. So this is, if I take it out, depending on the image, it's possible for me to do a little bit of modification. But what I like to do by taking a collage, even if you don't want multiple images, you can make a collage of a single scene like this here. Okay, so we have, and I can create a photo of this. So right now it's a collage and it's sitting in the collage menu. Okay, I can create a scene which takes it over to Smart Edit, but I'm going to do something else. I'm going to create a photo of this collage. And you're going, what the heck are you doing that for? Well, because what happens over here when I can take new and I can pick from my scene bin and take that collage image, and what happens is if somebody hasn't played with your system, you will find this folder is normally called Collages when you go to create your first collage. I can take that photo that I made from my collage and bring that in and animate it. So I can actually go off screen and pan across an image that otherwise I couldn't do. So if you have times and places when you want to go across an image of an individual, starting off screen, doing a nice crossfade into a person and coming across. Okay? Let's go ahead and bring this down to the flower. You can get some kind of interesting looking pieces. Okay? Now if I had chosen a black background and you do a crossfade through black from one scene into another scene, it starts off image and kind of goes across. You can do a real nice slow pan across people. And again, how you get that is in the collage window. You want to start in the collage window, make a new collage of just a single image. Okay? Take that single image of the person, for example. You can place them near full screen if you wish. Okay? And create a photo of that collage. That then lets you bring up that photo in the animation window, and you can do your movement across that image then. Okay, just gives you some more kind of creative variables for pulling that all together. All right. If you have other specific questions about PhotoStudio 2, again, for the balance of the conference, I'll be outside with my solitaire out there with some footage on it and can answer one-on-ones or small group questions. I do want to hammer through a couple more other software pieces that I think are really, really cool and make sure you're aware of what they can do for you. As I come back to my what's new category here.
Chet, PhotoStudio requires what?
PhotoStudio 2 requires 256 megs of RAM, and it does require OS 4.1D at this point in time.
When
So
you bring these images in, it's going to use up quite a bit of hard disk space, something high res.
when you bring the images in, I don't know what the actual ratio is on CB. It's
usually 2 to 5.
I've got a lot of folks with hundreds and hundreds, and I don't know if, Carol, if you've heard of any, people running up against issues on their hard drive size or with JPEGs in PhotoStudio 2. I haven't heard of any substantive issues with. I'll have to ask Jorg. Jorg will give you the answer that I should know right away.
You mentioned reducing the size of large files that are digital to NTSC. You're going to reduce the size of the video, the stills, the still pictures.
Say that again, please. I'm sorry.
You talked about in Photos PS2 to reducing the size of the digital photograph so it's not such a large file or something of that nature.
When we take the digital image, and anytime we create a scene of it, when we're taking it over to the video scene bin, it is conforming it then into the aspect ratio and the resolution of NTSC video. And essentially, maybe the wrong word, but dumbing it down to the poor resolution. People are scanning in images. You cannot, however, take a still shot of video and, well, you can do a workaround and actually export it with photo transfer and bring it back in, but you can't animate it because the resolution is not sufficient enough for it to go in and do some of the high-quality animation paths that you can with digital still images.
Can you bring any project into PhotoStudio 2 on a CD as long as it's a JPEG?
Yes. Yeah, I've downloaded images from the internet, like a newspaper headline, and I've cut out and put somebody's face in a newspaper headline, and yeah, all that kind of stuff.
So you can do projects that are like templates, from other programs, and created a JPEG of it and just bring it in?
Yes. Yeah, we have people creating stuff in Photoshop as backgrounds and stuff and bringing them in as a JPEG image and then layering that in. Yes. Yes, Michael.
You scan an image to bring in. Do you have a recommended DPI that you use?
I think most folks are using between 300 and 600 DPI.
Is there a maximum or a minimum?
They're saying don't go below 300.
That's what I'm using.
Yeah. And the people that have been using it the most have said that they're extremely happy with 300. And I have some people that swear by 600.
Go below 300 to tell you it's too small.
Image size too small.
One other question, please.
Yes, please.
On the backgrounds for the collage.
Yes.
Can you also bring in patterns?
Let's find out. A nice problem to have. Too much software. Okay, PhotoStudio 2. There we go. Launch PhotoStudio 2. Go to Collage. Go to Edit. Go to Option. Background, Color. Yeah, it is color only. I have my archive there. Yeah, it is not patterned, Mike. Good question. Okay, bang through a couple of projects really quickly here in terms of some backgrounds. First one is called Deluxe Title 3D, and this is probably one of our newest pieces of software. And Deluxe Title 3D lets you take a scene and in Titler actually launch Deluxe Title 3D, and it's its own separate effect in the system. Okay, and enter the text. Very cleverly, we have 3D text. And I have the ability to affect the style, the texture of the 3D. You have essentially a key fill and backlight that as the text is animated will give you different kind of an animation path. And we're going to go into this a little bit more detail tomorrow when we get to titling. And you can actually adjust the size of the beveled edges within the particular environment that you've chosen. The angle of the bevels, intrude and extrude, you get some really interesting effects, so that as if the edges are coming all the way out and the colored letters are sitting inside as if it was an extruded form. And there are even some archived capabilities. So we have the capability to do, and this is in your standard system as well. But once we create that, we can even have it, there's some kind of presets of where it's going to come in. Top to center, it'll rotate on the y-axis and spin out. Or we can have some free motion. There's some cool points here that I can load some where it's actually going to go through and do an animation path. That's way too short. Again, we're going to go into this in detail tomorrow in the title menu, but I wanted to give you a tiny taste of it so you're seeing what's capability. So you have a bottom to top, which is not particularly fancy, except you have different styling on the letters there. The big circle lets you establish that kind of 3D image. And it's interesting, the lighting effect that you get there across the text kind of fits in with the image. And then you have a top to bottom as well. Again, with the lighting conditions that you have, the ability to have some really, really, colorful. And you can totally change the color of the text, which I think, you can use the pick color, or you can have a static image here, as well as we can have it kind of move around, and it can sit there for a second before it goes off screen again. And there's the rotation on the y-axis before it would spin out. So just some really cool capabilities, and that's Deluxe Title 3D. And that's available in the demo mode. So on your system, that's one you can play with your own footage to determine whether or not that's something that you'd be interested in. The Border X came out in the last 6 months and is it's my favorite of the whole X collection. We have Split X, we have Split X2, we have Split X wedding images. Okay. We have art backs with a capital S, and this is by a company called Go Graphics. Now what you have the capacity to do with this is I can take a shot of the bride and the groom like this, and by coming down here and selecting Special and selecting Border X, it allows me to select from any of the 100 borders, and because I selected reduced size, we'll actually take and scale down the video to some degree and place it inside that border. So I can take a shot like, and there's a couple of my favorites. These are among my 3 favorites here. It's like an old-time photo. So I can take that, and it's going to actually place that full motion video clip right inside of there. Isn't that neat? Yeah. Exactly. So I've done some layers. Here's some other examples. Okay. Oh, this was done at the Sonoran Desert Museum. We've got the nice shots of the goats, and there's a nice little window effect. Some simple titling. You can kind of. You can take, as people were pointing out a minute ago, you can take, there's one that has the photograph, which looks very nice. Yes, I know, I should have shot it without the cars in the background. And you can take and put that over the old time, and then if you combine that with the film look, you have, you know, some really cool looking piece. So again, much more believable without the 1990s cars behind it. So, there's two other ones that I really, really love, and I just want to show you them really quickly if I've got them right here. And they are the film look pieces here. I've got this shot of the jellies from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and you can take and put that inside of a film strip. And again, it kind of creates a mask, or you can have one that runs across multiple films. And again, that's the Border X collection. Really, really cool. A strong, that's all those are in the Border X collection. A high recommendation on my part. A tiny taste as well with Filter Pack. So with Filter Pack, I can take an image. Let's see, I think I had this shot over here. Let's go ahead and delete that. By the way, what I'm using or doing here, affectionately called bookends. You have the capacity to create scenes, put them up in your scene bin. If you're like editing a project in long form over here, and you have the capacity to put these at the end of your scene bin, then I can go ahead and click on one of these and click search, and it takes me to that portion of my scene bin that has all those shots arranged by content or chronology. But again, I want to go to Filter Pack section. So I've got this shot of the bride and the groom here, and on Filter Pack, which is found under Special, and I can turn on, so I just see Filter Pack. Just show me the specials available under Filter Pack. I have these capabilities. So for example, I can take the radial blur, and I want to adjust the position, because remember, it's all about the bride. We can go ahead here, and I can have it start out and go in. Okay. And so you can, again, you can change the strength, and if you want to look at a full-size preview to see what that's going to look like, let's go in to out. You can adjust fully, kind of like a Brian De Palma move. It's as if the camera is actually moving in as it pushes the subject out, as it affects the degrees of light. And so you can do some really, really cool things. And I know Bertie's included some of his PC's done some really cool things with the Filter Pack. In fact, I think it's Tips and Tricks 3, Bertie, is it not? Where is Tips and Tricks 3, is there Filter Pack focus?
Tips and Tricks 3 and Tips and Tricks 4 has Filter Pack
Great.
options.
Thank you. So there's a whole series of color filters as well, which is important to note. It's more than just one. So you can take a full-size shot here and go into a sepia tone, blue glow. One thing I think is really cool is the cold light, how it affects the colors. There's some really cool impressions you get on that. You've got bright. So you have some really attractive and unattractive filters available to you depending on what you want to use. You also have kind of a stipple look that works for a nice piece. It works really well on a full motion piece. As the bride and groom are walking outside of the church, you can do some really cool things with the film look and the newspaper image as well. But that's called Filter Back. Title backs, in the interest of time, I'll show you tomorrow as part of titling. It gives you some graphics for your lower thirds masks. Columbus 2, I just want to give you a tiny taste, and then if you're a person who's interested specifically in travel videos, I highly recommend stopping by the table outside. I'll show you more of it. But what I can do within the environment of Columbus 2, let's take a look at all of our effects here. I can launch Columbus 2, and I can select different maps. And I happen to have, we have products called Express Maps and Big Maps. Big Maps America lets me select a different map. In fact, we've got one with the kind of the Southwest here. We have them with and without the geopolitical borders and major city names. Okay? But I can actually modify and zoom in on a piece and determine where I'm going to end up within the environment. So I can, as it's moving across a map, I can actually have an object trace the image, and what it looks like is something like this. And it's cool because what we call the head objects, there's a series of, I think, 80 new head objects, everything from hot air balloons to watercraft to scuba divers, and many of them are animated, as you'll see in this little example here. So we have the float plane from Anchorage to Valdez. We have the helicopter from Phoenix to Tucson, and the rotor is actually moving. We have the hot air balloon over the Albuquerque, hot air balloon fest. We have the ocean liner out to Nassau. And then the day that I went scuba diving out around the Cayman Islands. And that's right, saw the sharks and had to leave rather quickly. So, and you can see that the map is moving. You have full control over where the map is moving as you scan across. There's a couple walking hand in hand through you can put down cobblestone streets, and you don't have to use maps. You could use your own maps as images, or you could have put this over full motion video footage as well. So really cool, fun thing, and that's Columbus 2, and that is available on your system as a demo product as well. So it's something you can play with in your own system. Well, it is 10 minutes to 11 before we kick off our next presentation. And we do have a programming note before we break for our pledge drive. On your agenda previously, we had Jörg Sprave listed, but we've had to make some modifications with a piece of hardware that did come in later than we had hoped. So Carol, in his graciousness, has agreed to switch. So Carol Lamb is going to kick off at 11 a.m. with the presentation on widescreen TVs and the Casablanca, and also video flagging on Casablanca and how to deal with that. Then we're going to break for lunch right around 12 noon, and then we'll kick off our session with Jörg. So Carol and Jörg have switched places there. Thanks for your attention this morning. I know we've covered a whole bunch of stuff. So let's go ahead and Carol's going to be setting up. So again, when we break after his session, we'll be happy to answer software questions and products. Also, this afternoon when we come back from lunch, I will have tips and tricks available for sale. So after you see Bertie this afternoon, if you haven't already, wear that. And we do have, you're the first people on the planet to get access to Tips and Tricks Volume 4. It's here. So good stuff. So please go ahead and take about a 10.5-minute break. We'll kick off at 11 o'clock.
Software disk with it, don't you?
Yes. Yeah, and you need all software disks. Yes.
Quick question.
Yes.
If you put the CD in there, usually it says this wasn't created by Mac.